We're working. We're gonna make sure this happens as soon as possible.
Welcome to an episode of the Sports Genes Into the Lab podcast, where sports analysts and experts dissect the latest news from the NBA and NFL, giving you a unique view on some of the hottest topics around your favorite teams. From the fresh field smells of the NFL to the hardwood courts of the NBA, and possibly your comfy couch for your fantasy football team. Let's see what kind of news the lab is working with today. Here's your host from the Sports Analytics headquarters in San Antonio, Texas, Ernest Silva.
The Into the Lab podcast is back. I am your host, Ernest Silva, in the beautiful movie studio in San Antonio, Texas. We got the full podcast view tonight of the room tonight. Very beautiful view. Excited to show off the old corner. And of course, we have Talking It to Death there sitting at the podium. What is going on, guys? I'm your host, Ernest Doc E. Silva. And joining us on today's show is none other than Chris Connor with the Last Call podcast. What is up, Chris?
Not much. I mean, I'm a little bit in withdrawal. I mean, there's no more NFL. You know, the Super Bowl is done. I'm very happy about that. But now it's like, oh, crap. I'll get a little bit excited about the NFL draft, and then it's like, oh, great. I got to wait till August now for football. I'm not happy about that. I'm in withdrawal already. It's like, oh, my skin is starting to ache. Jesus, I miss the NFL.
I know. The first Sunday without football was really harsh. And I know we took a bye week right after Super Bowl to enjoy, get a little lull, transition to the wonderful time of basketball. That's right. We're finally talking some basketball here on ITL. And so we're going to end off and do our fourth down segments on football today. So let's talk a little bit about what today's show is all about. First off and foremost, hashtag What's in Your DNA. Today's episode brought to you by the Sport Gene Network. What's in Your DNA? Reach out today to be a part of this wonderful group of individuals and content creators. Chris Connor, we're going to talk some football, do our final segments on football before we go into the true off season. And then we are going right into basketball today. Might have some guests coming on, might have some sports scientists jumping on, but we will see. First off and foremost, you've been living under a rock if you don't know it, but the Kansas City Chiefs did win the Super Bowl. I'd be surprised if you didn't know that by now. You're either a Taylor Swift fan or you're a Kansas City Chief fan. Chris Connie, your thoughts on the game?
It started off slow. I mean, both teams were almost seems nervous. The second half picked up, and credit to as much as I love Mahomes, and he was the MVP. Credit to that defense because they stopped. I mean, we talked about Brandon Ayuk, Deebo Samuel. We were worried, we're gonna get off. We're gonna get 75 yards apiece. No, they got shut down, and they kept Christian McCaffrey under check. And look, they said it even earlier though. They wanted Brock Purdy to throw. They got their wish, and Mahomes once again is proving he might be the best quarterback when all is said and done, ever in the NFL. But it's still early. He still needs to have longevity, but he is coming up as, I hate to say it, the next GOAT.
Yeah, he's definitely on the GOAT path, so we can agree on that. I think it's pretty impressive what he's done to match Tom Brady. And obviously he was going to surpass stats-wise. That's not even a question, but he is clutch when clutch happens, and that's in the playoffs. Patrick Mahomes plays top-notch, high-level football when it's needed, and the Kansas City Chiefs are winners again. Dynastic run when it comes to AFC championships. They win another Super Bowl. He gets his third. Texas product. Couldn't have been happier. And I think you and I both picked the Chiefs on this show. Said we run with roulette, right? We go with red until it doesn't hit anymore, and there you have it. Patrick Mahomes moves forward. Now, I do have a question for you, Chris Connor, and it's going to be a debate. I know it. But what was the biggest disappointment of the Super Bowl? For me, is that Taylor Swift did not get a ring. Like that is a travesty, and pun intended. Like you have to put a ring on it. I don't care if it's only been 4 months. Like you won the Super Bowl. She is there. She flew halfway across the world to come watch you. You put a ring on it. What about you? What was your biggest disappointment?
Not enough Jason Kelsey in a luchador mask, and not enough, shots of him, no shirt, just drinking, living, La Vida Loca through a crowd. I mean, everything else, well, my disappointment was the way Steve Wilkes got treated. And that's all seriousness. I mean, I get it. He wasn't part of a Shanahan tree, but it wasn't a defense that screwed that game up. That was the offense. That was Shanahan. And then once again, people are getting frustrated that Shanahan never takes any blame. It's like, oh, it's this guy's fault. This guy's fault. This coordinator got to fire him. And at some point, Shanahan seems to have brain farts a lot during the Super Bowl where instead of running, he'll throw the ball. Instead of, trying to drain the clock, he just, rushes. And until he proves otherwise, he's a great regular season coach.
Yeah, I was shocked at the firing. I didn't think it was deserved. Virtual moderator in the comments, Rachel Gonzalez saying, biggest disappointment, the halftime show. Yikes. I know 50-50. I loved the halftime show personally. I was dancing with all the other moms in the world. And I know some people thought it was just not enough, and some people thought it was way too much, and it was kind of all over the place. I love it though. Let's keep the ball rolling for that. Great comment.
I want to jump in on Rachel. What do you expect though when the NFL doesn't pay these people for the halftime show? I mean, if you went to Taylor Swift and said, "Oh, you want to do a halftime show for free?" She'd look and go, "No." I mean, they don't pay these people, so that's what you're gonna get. You're gonna get guys who like Usher who are trying to promote their album, and the better acts are going to go, hell no.
Couldn't even get Bieber on the stage, am I right? I mean, Bieber was there.
I mean, Bieber said, no, you got to pay me here, but mother,
Rachel Gonzalez says, haha, you're right, LOL. It was just, I don't know. I liked it. I was all about it. You would be interesting to know. You're 1 degree away, Chris Connor, from Ludacris. I've talked to Ludacris on the phone directly, had a whole conversation. Whether it was for work or not, that is nothing I will disclose. Let's wrap up Super Bowl. Do the Chiefs or 49ers return soon? Let's do our last hot take. I'm going to tell you right now, Chiefs will win another Super Bowl with Patrick Mahomes in the near future. I don't know if it'll be next year, but it might be the year after, but he'll return one more time. One more time. What's your hot take, Chris Connor?
Chiefs return, 49ers don't return for the next 2 years. I mean, the Rams have money, so they're going to start spending. The Lions are, probably get better in the offseason. They have some cap room. You always get the Eagles. You always get the Cowboys. All of a sudden, the NFC is getting a lot more tougher. And what happens when a lot of these, Brandon Ayuk wants new deals. He's going to be, clamoring for stuff. Brock Purdy's going to come up in a year for a big contract. I mean, they got to start figuring out who they can keep, who they can cut. And do you give Brock Purdy a NFL caliber starting quarterback deal, or do you let him go and, dare I say, try to find somebody else?
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of questions in the offseason. It's going to be a lot of crazy change for both teams. That's our take. We're going to transition to some NFL season awards. If you weren't aware of it, there were some awards given. We hit on a couple. Let's talk that out right after this brief transition. All right, NFL season awards. We're going to talk about the big ones. We're going to leave the small ones for the other podcast. Let's talk. First off, let's roll down these. Right, I don't expect to spend too much time on some of these, but there are going to be ones we're going to talk about. Chris Borak, big time show panelist this year. In the comments, there we go. CJ Stroud over Patrick Mahomes. Pounded. Let's sound the alarm. That is a TSG guarantee. Absolutely. I'd take CJ Stroud over Patrick Mahomes any day of the week. Give me that dynasty football. Inject that in my veins. CJ Stroud all over the place. Chris Borak, hope to have you on again, buddy. Very, very soon. MVP went Lamar Jackson. I don't think many thought any differently on this. The Baltimore Ravens finished atop the AFC with the best record in the AFC. They were phenomenal at home. They beat teams when they needed to. They blew out teams. They looked like just the team to beat, and then had an absolute egg in the playoffs. Chris Conner, for me, it wasn't close. Although Dak Prescott, I think, finished second with points and how the point system works. That's kind of crazy. But Lamar Jackson ends up the winner. I don't think I have to ask it, but did they get it right?
Yeah, I mean, look, Lamar Jackson had a fantastic year. He literally, took his own game to the next level. You always wondered, can he stay healthy for a full season? Can he improve as a passer? He did both of those. He was, once he beat the 49ers that badly, it was like, all right, just give him a damn MVP.
Yeah, I completely agree. We won't spend too much time on this. Lamar Jackson, well deserved. Showing everybody he's a passer, and that's I think what was the big thing and the big step and leap for Lamar Jackson this year. Will be interesting to see what that team does going forward. Their salaries are going to be interesting. Not a ton of wiggle room and a very aging roster. So we'll see what happens with Baltimore coming up next. Coach of the year, Kevin Stefanski. I personally hated this award, but Chris Conner, I'll get your thoughts first.
He deserved it. I mean, look, he took a team that lost both its starting right and left tackle, their starting quarterback, their backup quarterback, their starting tailback. I mean, and they still got to the playoffs with friggin', Joe Flacco coming off the bench, literally his mom's couch and winning games. Look, I get it. It's not the sexy pick, but he coached that team through everything that bad that could happen and still got him into the playoffs.
I would have probably given this to DeMeco Ryans personally.
No, I'm sorry. I know of that, but DeMeco Ryans, everything went well that he could, went well. I mean, what adversity did the Texans face? Quarterback stayed healthy for almost the entire year. Schedule was easy. They didn't lose anybody. It wasn't like they went, oh, crap. Both our tackles are down. We're now starting backups here. It's like, oh, crap. Joe Flacco, I know you're on Mama's couch eating potato chips. Come on down. We lost our quarterback.
I get what Kevin Stefanski had to do, but the Browns weren't the bottom feeder of the league to playoff number 4 seed home field advantage. And I think that's the story for me. Now everybody knows, if you're watching this show, Texan Homer, right? Got it. Like, let's just check mark that. And if that sells you off, then that's perfectly fine. Again, you wouldn't be watching this show if you didn't know that. But DeMeco Ryans did something special, right? And Cesario got his guys in the draft. Obviously, DeMeco Ryans wanted Will Anderson Jr., wanted CJ Proud, got the guys he wanted on offense, and the defense took leaps. And that to me takes a coach that has to piece together all the pieces around him and make sure that it actually works. CJ Stroud nobody has done better in a rookie season like CJ Stroud was. He was absolutely set up for success. And they keep their coaching staff in the offseason. I think it's the biggest thing the Texans could have done this offseason was keep their coaching staff together. And the offensive line was not perfect, nor was it great, and yet they still were successful. They did lay some eggs, right? Well, you and I talked about it. They lost to the Panthers. We get it. And they did lose to the Browns, which Kevin Stefanski is the winning coach of the year. I just personally love the story and the upbringing. Will there be a makeup award if the Texans are a 12-win team next year? Probably. That's why I'm not upset about it. But my vote would have gone to DeMeco Ryans if that matters for anybody listening.
You want to basically, have him over for dinner and go start rubbing his shoulders and go, Coach, they screwed you, but I'm in your corner. Don't worry about it. They screwed you, those nasty NFL writers. Look, but Stefanski took a team that last year was 7-10, who, quarterback, Deshaun Watson, who I know that you are still throwing darts at in the board, basically dislocated his shoulder. Oh, by the way, their Pro Bowl left tackle. Yours stayed healthy for the entire Larry Tunsil stayed healthy for the entire season. Browns lost both of theirs. Randall, Cobb Chubb got injured. You had the backup quarterback couldn't play, got injured. I mean, everything that could go wrong went wrong, and yet they still won. It would be toughest conference in the NFL, the AFC North.
Yeah, like I said, I didn't say he wasn't deserving of it. I just think D'Amico was more. But Stefanski did overcome more. Obviously, not having Deshaun is a huge hit, and then being able to run it with Flacco, I think, is the biggest piece of that. But they were without their defensive stars for a while, in and out of the lineup. I think that's impressive as well. If they could keep teams within par and within catching distance. And then no Nick Chubb, right? Like that, you would probably write off the Browns any other season. So congratulations to Stefanski. Let's move on to our next couple of awards, which is Offensive Player of the Year and Defensive Player of the Year. CMC and Myles Garrett win those decisively. Christian McCaffrey by a mile. It was not close. And Myles Garrett wins what was probably somewhat of a close race over Watt and Parsons, but not really. I don't have an issue with either of these awards. I know you could probably stat drop and work against Myles Garrett, but Christian McCaffrey, by far the most lethal Swiss Army knife player in the league. Just a phenomenal person and player. And Myles Garrett continues to perform at an elite level despite some of his on-field and off-field antics. He continues to be a force and a threat. And again, part of that Browns team that was just so spectacular this year. He was pivotal in making sure that they were elite on the defensive line. For me, they got these right. Chris Connor, did you like them?
Yes, I mean, look, you could argue T.J. Watt also deserved, Defensive Player of the Year. I wouldn't argue with you; it was close, but Myles Garrett, it seems like every time he turned around, he was making a big play to help win the game. He was forcing fumbles. He was fumble recovery. To win this game, pass defenses, sacks, constantly in the backfield, and. Look, what can you say about Christian McCaffrey? He was the offense for the San Francisco 49ers. He is almost found like a fountain of youth. He's no longer, a guy who's getting dinged up and missing 3 or 4 games. They're using him wisely. He was basically the offensive, story of the entire year.
I completely agree. I don't think there's much more to say about those. If you want to go look at them, we'll put highlights in the comments and then we'll move on. Comeback Player of the Year was controversial. Joe Flacco wins this. He did not play a full season. He played half the season. He played great football. Ultimately, at the end, didn't have enough left in the tank. And I think he was a bit rusty going into that Houston Texan matchup in the AFC wildcard. And then you have Joe Flacco of regular season, who did throw a pick a game, but he came in, like you said, eating potato chips, hanging out with his family, and then all of a sudden it's like, hey, lead the NFL team, and of course, lead the Cleveland Browns. I don't know if there was a better story this year, which is maybe why he won it, because he got so many second place votes. But to me, Damar Hamlin and that story, to me, was a better comeback player of the year. He did get more first place votes, but the point system favored Joe Flacco. Damar Hamlin playing, having his role on special teams and on defense, just kind of the heartbeat of what kept the Bills in it when they were down, what he does for the community. I just think that his involvement means more to the sport, but as far as productivity, there was nobody you could choose other than Flacco, I think. Your thoughts, and did you agree with Joe Flacco's comeback player of the year, Chris Connor?
No, that should have been Baker Mayfield. I mean, he played a full year, and people wrote him off. Oh, they're gonna. I even said Tampa Bay Buccaneers are gonna suck. They're not going. They're gonna be fighting for the number 1, pick, and he basically willed. Had a career revival, led him to the second round of the playoffs. Basically found his mojo, and look, now all of a sudden, a guy who was, cast off from Carolina, picked up as, a street free agent by Tampa Bay after, 5 games with the Rams. It's all of a sudden he threw for 4,000 yards, 28 touchdowns, only 10 interceptions, completed 64.3% of his passes, 94.6, quarterback rating. He deserved it. But it's just the story of Joe Flacco, rolling off mom's couch, leading the Browns, and I think that's what happened. Everybody fell in love with the story instead of the guy who had the full year.
Yeah, I agree. Again, I probably would go Hamlin route. I think that was the more pivotal, heartfelt story. But if you're all into the stats, some people would say Joe Flacco deserved it. This is the awards that we probably want to spend the most time on, but I won't take too much time. Offensive Rookie of the Year, CJ Proud. Defensive Rookie of the Year, Will Anderson. Boy, did Houston get it right. Trade up in the draft. You knew you had two pivotal players. You're going to have them for over a decade, and you're going to pay these players. Will Anderson Jr. showed exactly why he was worth that trade up. And the Cardinals look like they have some egg on the face after that trade and what it looks like going forward. I absolutely love that they won Rookie of the Year. I don't think they got it wrong. If I had to choose other players, I might nitpick some stats and bring up some other guys that could maybe make a run. But I thought CJ Proud, having the best rookie campaign of any quarterback in NFL history, is deserving of that award. And I thought Will Anderson, with his highlights and his marketability and playability they had with the Houston Texans and his impact on the field, I think will show for years to come why this is the right decision. Chris Connor, your take.
I agree with the Offensive Rookie of the Year. That was C.J. Proud. What can you say? Just the best rookie season that you've ever seen, especially a guy who at one point, when he first played, he looked like a deer in the headlights. We were going, oh, my God, this is going to be bad. I disagree with Will Anderson. I'm sorry. To me, Jalen Carter should have won. He was just a beast every time he played. In the backfield, 6 sacks, 33 tackles, 2 fumble recoveries, 1 for 42 yards and a touchdown. He was the only good things out of that Philadelphia, defense. And look, I get it. It's Will Anderson had a good season, but I think because of Will Anderson, because of Jalen Carter, you had Witherspoon from Seattle, you had all these top rookies. It just got there wasn't a clear winner, so it was basically whoever got the most votes of everything total. They got it. So, but I still, it would have been Jalen Carter. He was a force from day one to the last game of the year.
Yeah, I like it. I think it's big play ability and just the time that Will Anderson had in the backfield. He led the league in as far as rookies. He led the league when it comes to pressures on the quarterback. He led the league in turnovers, turn for a score. We all remember the touchdown run back. Will Anderson Jr. had. A lot of players dream of having that moment, and he got his moment in rookie year. So we'll have to see if he can live up to that height. Hopefully there's no second-year slump, and Houston is rolling with a lot of money, and we're going to stay in Houston right after this brief transition. Saquon Barkley's following everybody. Here we go. Let the rumors start. Let's get the show rolling. Saquon Barkley has started to follow Tank Dell. He started to follow C.J. Stroud. He's following the Houston Texans organization. I think the writing's on the wall. Saquon to Houston just makes the most sense, and it would be a piece Houston was missing, and it won't kill them budget-wise. They have tons of money. Chris Connor, does Houston take a giant leap with Saquon Barkley, or is that just me too hyped?
Too hyped. And I'll say that only because you and I talked about it. They have a lot of free agents they got to address first, which is, hey, there's a guy by the name of Dalton Schultz. Bring him back. Guys like Sheldon Rankins. You have Jonathan Garrard. I mean, they got to figure out how much, they want to pay this guy because he was a monster, but do you pay him franchise money? Do you franchise him? You got to figure that out. Offensive line's a bigger need. You know who I think they actually might bring? It's one of your buddies. That's right. Zeke Elliott to Houston. I'm calling it right now. He wants to go back to Texas. You can then give him a hug. Go, hey, Trey was wrong. Try to fight it. We want you back. Come back, Zeke. We forgive you.
What?
Oh,
No.
come on. You have a Zeke Elliott jersey in your house, and I know it.
Not
you
at
go,
all.
Zeke. We love you. Come back here. Come on. The hug of friendship. You, me, Tank, CJ Stroud. We can do it.
Where else does Saquon go? Like, let's talk about options, right? Like, Saquon, to me, the money is in Houston. The playing time is in Houston. The fit's in Houston. I don't know where else is a better option for you. to make a chance to go to the Super Bowl. That's it. It's Houston. And if you really strike out on Saquon Barkley, which I don't think they will, but if you did, I mean, you run to Josh Jacobs, right? Like that's your next option. If
I'll
you're
tell you
Houston,
right now,
like
Saquon Barkley, Dallas Cowboys.
but what money?
Jerry
There's no
wants a
money.
big swing. He wants a big move. You know, Jerry, he's going, damn it. I want to drop, as they say, I want to drop a big dick in the rim here, son. Let's do it. Let's poke at the Giants and get Saquon here. Let's do it. And he'll talk Steven into it, go, hey, this works for all parties.
I know when it comes to money, this is usually how Jerry Jones operates.
Easy money!
Just let it ride, Jerry. Just let it ride. Let the cap go. But I just don't see how that fits. You have to pay CeeDee Lamb. You have to pay Micah Parsons. Obviously, you're going to have to pay Dak Prescott. If Saquon plays somewhere in Texas, I'll be happy next year. But I think the place for him and the leap forward for that offense will be pay Saquon, bring Dalton Schultz back, and then let it ride another year. Draft the line, make that stout, and then build up that defense. You may be saying Saquon Barkley, Dalton Schultz, Chris Jones, and build everything else through the draft, and that's the Houston Texans offseason. I wouldn't be upset. That addresses three.
So you're gonna let Gerard go then because he's gonna want big money.
I would have to see what he wants. Maybe you can get him with longevity, but that you're gonna have to see what he wants. He had
He's
one good year.
$50 million per year. You know that. That's if a guy like Joey Bosa is getting that. He's going, hey, I want that money here. I'm healthy.
Yeah,
I'm younger. Give me that money. Give me the money.
We're not talking about Dak Prescott on today's show, but I do want to highlight that the rumor of him wanting $60 million is just atrocious. It makes me sick. I hope it's just a rumor, but that is crazy talk. Last topic of the night here for football fans before we transition to our basketball segment. Russell Wilson, a Pittsburgh Steeler. Just Luke, not on tonight's show. He would have a lot to say about this, but we kind of hinted this. We hinted Russell Wilson or Geno Smith to Pittsburgh made a lot of sense this offseason, and now we're hearing the rumors come out. Russell Wilson creeping over. Chris Conner, I'll give you the dibs on this last topic.
When I first heard it, and I heard it somewhere from, I think probably Colin Coward or one of you national guys, like, oh, yeah, keep your eye on Russell Wilson too, Atlanta or Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh, to me, makes the most sense because it's a team that has a coach who's not afraid to put him in his place, but also cajole him and, motivate him. It's a team that needs a quarterback because I don't think they trust Kenny Pickett to stay healthy. And for him, it's like, all right, it's a national brand. Like I don't see him being a backup quarterback. I don't think his ego can take that. I don't see him wanting to be a placeholder for a young kid on a bad team. I don't think he wants to go out like that. Pittsburgh, it's everything he wants, and more importantly, it's with a coach who won't get just sort of starstruck or not be able to get him to respect him. Mike Tomlin, no matter what you say, players respect him.
Yeah. I love the fit. I'm not a huge Russell Wilson stan or fan whatsoever, so it'd take me some time to adjust to seeing him in black and yellow. But if the Steelers organization wants him, then obviously you go and get him. And you bring him in and you have him fit in that system. He can't throw in certain parts of the field. And I think we all know what that means. Before we transition to our hoops talk, let me just tell you guys, we've got a doozy. Kenneth Cotterell has joined the show. Kenny Cotterell, the Duke jersey hanging behind you. What's up, my man?
Not a lot. Just was sweating out some bets tonight that weren't hitting. So I figured what better time to hop on ITL to distract myself from my empty bank account than right now. So thanks for having me.
That's perfect. I know you like to take it out on us, so I appreciate the jab to the front of the face. Appreciate it. Russell Wilson, a Steeler. Kenny, any thoughts on that?
I don't know why the Steelers want that. I don't really know why any team wants that at this juncture of Russ's career. I think that Russ can start for a team. I just don't think that it should be a team's first choice. I think that
Good.
it's other QB situations. Like the Falcons, if they had to settle this offseason because they didn't get a Fields, they didn't get somebody, then maybe you bring in Russ because he's slightly better than Desmond Ridder and Taylor Heineke, but it's not a major upgrade. So I don't know what team's interested in him starting this year.
It bothers me he can't throw down the middle of the field, but I think it's like if you lose the Justin Fields sweepstakes, Russell Wilson's there is kind of the play, right? Like,
and you would be taking him because you don't believe that Kirk's going to come back 100% coming off a major injury as well.
Right. Completely agree. All right, Kenny's here because he's ready to talk hoops. I am too. If you're tuning in, that means you're here to talk hoops. Let's jump right into it with a quick and smooth transition. Remember, the Sport G Network, brand new, right at your face. 2024. What's in your DNA? All right, let's do the hardwood. We're going to do a recap on what's been going on in the NBA season. If you didn't know it, stuff really can't be that different in the NBA, right? You'd be so sorely mistaken. The NBA season's freaking weird this year. The Thunder are actually pretty good, and Draymond's been suspended, then not suspended, and suspended. We're going to talk about all that stuff, but let's start off with Draymond Green, everybody's favorite topic. But Draymond Green got suspended, didn't get suspended, got suspended again, then got suspended indefinitely, and then came back, and now he's been on this crazy streak the last 2 weeks, just doing absolutely bonkers stuff. He choked a man. He's put somebody in a headlock. He's sticking his tongue out at people. Kenny Cotterill, why is Draymond Green so unhinged this year? It's just a whole nother level of Draymond.
I think he's acting out because he doesn't want to be in Golden State anymore. I don't think that anyone really wants to be in Golden State anymore. The championship window is completely closed on this team. Steve Kerr, quite frankly, has mismanaged this organization over the past year or so because Clay isn't what he was yet. He's playing heavy minutes over guys like Moses Moody, Jonathan Kuminga at times. Like, they had young assets. That was one of the strengths that Golden State had, was they had that championship core, but then they also had all these high draft picks from the year that Steph broke his hand. So I just think that it's been a mismanagement, and now Draymond's taking it out on everybody else because he doesn't want to be there. If he had it his way, he'd probably be in LA with LeBron, but I think he's just disinterested in being there because he knows that the window's closed.
Is it like the final years of Rodman in Chicago? Is that what it kind of feels like? Like just the acting out, the I'm done with it type of phase?
Yeah, I think that it's happened with stars before. They can't reach the peak of what they once were. And, I mean, Draymond's been on a steady decline, especially offensively, over the last number of years. And I don't think that there's a lot of value out there for him right now. I don't know what he brings to your organization, especially if he's going to have these antics. That's why I mentioned the Lakers, because they're the only team that could. LeBron could keep him in check.
Yeah, I completely agree. Chris Connor, I agree with the window being closed for Golden State. Are you as sold on Golden State's window being shut?
Yes, but I think this is more just Draymond Green's an idiot. I mean, he's always been a guy who has been perceived as dirty and sportsmanlike. It's basically a bit of a nut job. And as you said, he realized, like, all right, this is the last contract he's ever going to get. I mean, what team wants him? I mean, I know that you said, well, if he went to the Lakers, LeBron could handle him, but if you're LeBron James, why the hell do you want to deal with another child? It's like, okay, you have enough issues with my team and trying to get my healthy. Now I got to deal with this guy who, oh, by the way, not sure he wants to take direction, can't shoot the three anymore with consistency, undersized, doesn't fit sort of this NBA, in terms of defending the bigs, which is what the Lakers want. So yeah, I think. If he tried to get on the Lakers, I think LeBron would go, no, hell no. No to the end. Lose our number.
Yeah, personally, as a Rockets fan, I can't stand Draymond Green, so it's cringe to just have it on the screen. But we had to start with that because that was pretty crazy to start the year. Crazier is Doc Rivers has a head coaching gig of the best team in the East, according to him. but they are 3-7 since his return. So don't call it a comeback would be that headline because it's been bad. And he's also blaming the players. So he's saying it's not his fault that there's a culture problem in Milwaukee and that it's not that easy. Well, we get that, Doc Rivers. JJ Redick, which I know is a great piece and idolized piece for Competitive Hedge podcast. But JJ Redick slammed him today. And I thought it was important to note, like Doc Rivers, wherever he goes, there is not playoff success. Like it is a struggle for him to go and play, make the deep play into the playoffs. He struggled controlling stars. He struggled with the only time he's won, and Ken, you can correct me on this, was when he had the star power in Boston, right? He had Rajon, the big three. Like, how could you lose with that team? Like, that was pretty much my thought now, seeing Doc Rivers through the Clippers era, through the Philly era, and now going into Milwaukee. I don't know what else to say about him. Your thoughts on Doc Rivers and this Milwaukee puzzling fit?
I mean, when it comes to Doc, I mean, the only reason why he ever won a championship is because he was the first coach to get a true big three in this era. They were 1 year ahead of everyone else. And then when other teams got equal talent, if not better, Doc has never beaten a team that he shouldn't. He always beats the teams that he should. He'll eliminate the Knicks or whoever it is that's in front of him, but he's not a coach that's going to take you over the hump at this juncture. Now, the only reason why he's there is because they panicked. The Bucks panicked because Lillard didn't like Adrian Griffin, didn't like his style. Giannis wanted to bring him in. As soon as you lose Giannis, I mean, he's GM, coach, owner of the Bucks, and so that's why Adrian Griffin finds himself without a head coaching job. And then I think they just panicked, hired him, and I think that that's evident in the fact that they fired him. And then you have Doc going on shows saying, "Oh, I was even shocked that they called me." He wasn't anticipating getting a head coaching job. So I think the Bucks are in trouble. They don't have perimeter defense. They thought that trading for a guy like Patrick Beverley, speaking of a guy who really tried to rip into JJ today, he's a guy that they tried to bring in for perimeter defense. He's not the defender that he once was. He's not going to give you 25 minutes. He's not Drew Holiday. And so they're still going to continue to struggle. I do think that Griffin was using Lillard incorrectly, to be fair to Lillard in all of this. They don't run a lot of pick and roll. It's just very stagnant offense for them. So I think that the Doc hire is a bad hire. I think any team that hires Doc Rivers is a bad hire at this juncture, especially if you're trying to win a championship. And I just don't see them as true contenders in the East because I don't trust that Doc's going to make adjustments in the playoffs to get it done.
Yeah, Bucks currently sitting third in the East, 35-21. Chris Connor, your take on the Doc Rivers fit, and do you think that they'll turn it around this season?
No, but as much as I'm not a big Doc Rivers fan. I can't blame him. I mean, look, the Greek freak has regressed. He's not a guy who you think, can shoot from a three, has an outside shot. He is what he is. He's a athletic big man who can drive, go to the post, but, he gets sometimes wild. Damian Lillard is a small shooting guard, so he's not going to defend anybody. And then you look and go, it's Jay Crowder, a bit past, expiration date. Patrick Beverley, another small guard. Their third quote-unquote star is Chris Middleton, and even he's undersized. I mean, you look at the Celtics and compare their big five to Milwaukee, it's like one team, at least one, this piece fits, this piece fits, this piece fits. All right, everything works. And then you look at the Bucks, and it's like, let's get a bunch of names, and we'll throw them together, and, it should work. And now we're finding out, no, there's a reason why Damian Lillard never won anything. There's a reason why Chris Middleton is not an all-star. And now we're finding out this is an overrated team, and they might have to blow it up.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, Giannis, everybody prepares for Giannis. Everyone prepares for Luka. Everyone prepares for Jokic. Everyone prepares for Embiid. I mean, it's hard to really say that he's regressed compared to the star and defensive nature everybody does against them. I will say that his outside shooting has gotten better. I just don't think it's a threat, like you said, Chris Connor, when it comes to Giannis. I am not hoping the Bucks turn it around, but the East usually has a big four that are just at each other at the top. And right now that does not include the 76ers, includes a different team. Before we talk about that, my surprise, Kenny, for this was that they didn't pursue PJ Tucker. He was such a big piece to them winning that championship, and he wants out of LA. He's not getting playing time. Him and his shoes were packed. Why doesn't Milwaukee pull that trigger and just bring him over? And it would have been cheap too.
I don't know why they don't either, because Giannis hasn't regressed. He's still like 31, 11, and 6. It's just when you go from, because they're a top 5 offense as far as rating goes in the league, they're just in the bottom half of the defensive side. So I think that it's more so that they shouldn't have pulled the trigger on Dame, because Drew Holiday truly was that valuable in the Eastern Conference. Look, did Jimmy Butler cook him in the playoffs last year? Sure, but that's just a guy going on a historic run. I don't think any defender in the world is slowing down Jimmy Butler when he's playing at that level. But when you lose a guy like Drew, now we're seeing what it's like, and I don't think that it's a Giannis problem. I think it's the rest of the team around him. Like Middleton's not even averaging 15 points. That's a bigger red flag than anything that Giannis is doing. Could they add PJ Tucker? Sure, but I also think that there's a reason why he's not playing, and I think he's hit his expiration date as well. It would be a cheap move, and it's one that you could point to at the very least and say, well, at least we tried to improve on the defensive side, not just getting Patrick Beverley. So they could have done that logistically. I just don't know how much he's contributing.
Let's talk about some of those teams that make that transition. The Indiana Pacers, 31-25, have been really, really good. Tyrese Halliburton having a phenomenal career year for the Pacers. If you haven't been watching, it's all about it. The Heat are doing exactly what they do every year, coasting through the regular season, getting a lower seed, then trying to make that miraculous run like they do. It's no longer a surprise. That's what they want. They don't care about the regular season. But the big story for me are the New York Knicks. New York Knicks are actually pretty good. Like their schedule has been favorable, but they have a cohesive unit that has been averaging points. They're very starter heavy on points, but they are very good. They made some trades. Jalen Brunson leads that team. He's the alpha on the team. Julius Randle returning as a staple there. RJ Barrett and OG Anunoby are the figure points making the trade in middle of this season. OG Anunoby joining. And I'm troubling with that name, but joining from the Toronto Raptors. And then, of course, Emmanuel Quickley is also on this team, amongst others. I've liked to watch Jalen Brunson's evolution in this game. Jalen Brunson has turned out to be a pretty clutch performer on the court for the New York Knickerbockers. Chris Connor, front and center with the New York Knicks. You see that the evolution of Jalen Brunson has helped the Knicks kind of rise into that top 4 status, with Joel Embiid missing probably the majority of the rest of the season. I don't see Philly gaining that 4 spot. What are your thoughts with the Knicks? Are they legit to you as they're legit to me? Because I really like them going towards the latter half of the season.
Legit's a strong word. I mean, look, they're a good team. They'll make the playoffs. They'll make some noise. This looks like, I mean, I hate to say it because it feels, just sort of lazy, but it's almost like, okay, it's the Celtics, then everybody else, and everybody else sort of fighting for, okay, to get to the Eastern Conference Finals. Look, Brunson, we just said Jalen Brunson's playing out of his mind. He's shown that he is a true star. I just wonder if the rest of the team has enough to sort of help him out. Like OJ Anunoby is, a good player, not an all-star. Josh Hart, Isaiah Hartenstein, Dante DiCenzio. Compare that to, what you're going up against in the playoffs. Like, okay, who's going to, step up and be the Batman? Who's going to be the guy that you look and go, he'll be a breakout star? And I don't see that with the Knicks. Look, they're doing well because the Bucks sort of have lost their way. 76ers are, banged up. Indiana's still not ready to take that, the next step. They're getting close. And Miami is basically sort of like, oh, crap, we lost out Damian Lillard. We have nobody else here. What the hell's going on? This is your Eastern Conference. It's basically, wake us up when the finals and who the Celtics take on for the finals.
Now, so your Celtics are shoe into the finals, is what I'm hearing. That is your take.
They had the best starting five of anybody in the Eastern Conference, bar none. So, yeah, well, unless basically they just lose their minds, they're going in.
All right, we are talking hoops here on ITL. I'm your host, Ernest Silva. Kenny Cotterill joined Talking Knicks here. Kenny, Knicks top 3 team in the East, in your opinion?
I think so. We haven't even seen them at their full potential because if we're talking about teams that are banged up, Mitchell Robinson hasn't played for over a month. Julius Randle isn't playing right now. They went out at the deadline. They added Bogdanovich as well. Like, this is a group where once we get to playoff time fully healthy, that's an 8-man rotation that's really talented. And Brunson, he has taken the next step. Everyone will say, well, he's in the MVP conversation. He's not going to win MVP. You can say, sure, he had a really great year. He's probably going to be an all-NBA first or second team guy. But when you look at the Knicks, I really do like what I see. I think that they have good perimeter defenders. I think that they can go inside. They can beat you on lobs. Like, I think that this is a really talented group, but until I see it at 100%, I'm not going to say that they're going to go and win the East. I do think that the Celtics are favored for a reason. But let's also keep in mind the Celtics coaching last year let them down in the playoffs. So has that coaching learned? Are they going to make the right adjustments? Because they got completely outcoached by Spoelstra in the playoffs last year and then found themselves sitting on the couch when everyone had the Celtics winning the East after Milwaukee got eliminated. So I'm not ready to put the Knicks as the second best team, but I would have them in the top 3, yes, especially with Embiid out. I think that they're kind of there by default.
Yep, I have them at number 3 as well. We didn't talk Cleveland Cavaliers on this show, but we will on the next show.
We have
a lot. Good one. Shut up, Kenny. All right, let's transition to Houston Rockets basketball. Kenny's second favorite team in the league and favorite team in our hearts here on this show. If you know me, you know Houston Rockets basketball was going to be on tonight's show. There's not a lot to talk about, but let's go ahead and break right down into it. The Houston Rockets are towards the bottom of the league, but they have a perennial star in Alperen Sengun, a rising star in Alperen Sengun, and Jabari Smith Jr. has been resurging throughout the season. The two key factors, the two twin towers, is what they're building around at this point. Tari Eason and Cam Whitmore both having their spectacular season. Cam Whitmore, the breakout rookie that fell in the draft. And then Amen Thompson finally got healthy, and when he plays, averaging a double-double of points, rebounds. So just absolutely youth movement completely. The big question is around Jalen Green and the Houston Rockets, what they will do with him. Will they extend him? Will they trade him for a star? That's the big question. So, Kenny, that's my question of the night. Are you on board with building around Alperen Sengun and trading Jalen Green? Or are you around building around the core 6 you've drafted and then getting a 7th one this next draft?
I have no idea why you would be trading any of these 6 players, because Houston is exactly where they should be this season. By the time the season's done, they'll probably have about 35 wins, which is a significant improvement from last year. I got laughed at when I said that the Dylan Brooks and Fred VanVleet signings would be good, not because they were going to take them to the playoffs, but because they would be phenomenal vets that would help these kids grow. And what have we seen all season long? We've seen them grow. We've seen them improve. Did they get out to the hot start and then they hit that young player lull in the middle of the season where they started to lose games that they probably shouldn't? Yeah, they did. But that's going to happen over time. This Houston Rockets rebuild wasn't going to be, 2024, we're going to the playoffs. It was going to take time to do it. And I don't know why you would go and trade any of those 6 guys. You keep the 2 vets that you have. You add another one in the offseason. You go out, you get another player in the draft with a relatively high pick. It's not a great draft class, but if you trust your draft scouts, then maybe you find a gem in the later lottery area of this draft. And I think that Houston's fine. I don't know why anyone would be poo-pooing what they're doing. I think that they're doing a really good job of doing a proper rebuild. We saw what Oklahoma City did. They said, we're going to suck for a couple years, but then they drafted well. And now we're seeing the fruits of their labor. I think that the same could happen in Houston as long as they don't panic and think that they're behind schedule for whatever reason.
Yeah, I feel like there's a ton of pressure for a win now after all those seasons with James Harden and then being poverty for 3 years. And you just gotta pump the brakes. Now,
Take time.
If Jalen Green wants out, that's a different story,
Yeah.
right? If he's just like, "I hate it here," well, yeah, then you trade him, right? And it's done.
Then
I
have
don't
some
know if
draft
he's
picks and another young player, and then you're going to be fine. Like he's
right,
not Sengun. He is of the guys. He is probably the most expendable out of them with the highest trade value.
right. Because if you look at the core 6, and I mentioned the other 5 already, so I'm not gonna kinda beat the dead horse. They all have terrific potential.
Mm-hmm.
My worry that comes up is when you sprinkle in the vets, where do the minutes go when you start drafting another draft class? Because it's the next topic, and I'll bring it up on screen because Chris Connor will chime in on this one. But Jacques Vaughn is out in Brooklyn, and as we all know, Houston owns that pick, right? So if Brooklyn tanks and that becomes really bad for Brooklyn, it's not protected. So Houston could have another lottery pick way up in the top of the draft. Now it becomes you have 7 really good core members, and then you sprinkle in the other vets you've paid this large amounts of money to. Not enough ball at that point. And so what do you do to, kind of gather the talent, trade out, bring pieces? And it gets very difficult in the next offseason to start trading for big contracts because now it's 1 for 1. That's why the Dylan Brooks contract and the Fred VanVleet contracts are so lucrative and marketable, because you're going to only be able to match 1 for 1 in the NBA in offseason trades, and that's a big deal. And that we're not going to cover that in today's segment, but that's a huge piece that a lot of people don't know about, that the rules are changing for how big contract can be traded across NBA teams. Chris Connor, if the Rockets end up gathering another young core piece, what would you do? Are you looking to trade for a star, or are you still building around the core like Kenny?
It all depends where Brooklyn's pick falls. Because if let's say you're making all these points, okay, but it's this, it's that here, and I'm gonna throw a trade out there for a star who makes sense. And bear with me here, this is a big wonky. Ja Morant. I mean, you talk to Memphis people, it's like the worry is he just doesn't belong there. He's not gonna stay out of trouble. There's nobody in the front office who can really rein him in. If you're Houston, you have Ime Udoka, who seems to be the player whisperer, who everybody from Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, Marcus Smart, all revered. Do you trade, let's say, Fred VanVleet, Jalen Green, and Brooklyn's first-round draft pick, and go after Ja Morant and go, all right, this is a stud. This is the guy we're going to have as our centerpiece.
It's going to cost way more than that to get Ja.
I think you have to attach a couple more Brooklyn picks
and another player.
Yeah.
And then at that point, you've kind of made a lateral move because you haven't really added anyone. Like, it's Ja, but then you're losing out on a lot of other potential. Like, I understand what you're saying. Memphis, obviously, Ja's had a tough go over the last year or so. He's going to sit out the rest of this year because he had surgery. But I just don't think that adding Ja Morant when you don't have, Sengun is great. But after that, I don't think that there's a lot else that you can then hang your hat on. And that's not getting you any closer to a championship either. You're taking a major risk as well. We're talking about the guy that missed a quarter of the season to begin with because of off-the-court issues. So are you going to give up your entire future for what is right now deemed a troubled star? I just don't think that it makes sense for Houston because they do have assets that they can grow with. And if you're worried about minutes, like VanVleet's playing like 36 minutes a game, you can drop him down to like 25 and you can dump Tyrese, and he's probably the piece that you're most willing to give up because he is on the older side of this core.
Yeah, although Tari Eason's known to be a gem in Houston, it's hard to see that Tari Eason wouldn't be a part of a run for Houston. But I can definitely see that. I'm not as particularly big on Ja. We were going to talk Ja Morant a little bit more, but I just think it's a curious case of Ja Morant, like just a weird situation with waving the gun, getting suspended, now out for the season again with another injury. Memphis dwelling on the bottom right now. But a lot of great things happening in Houston. If you're a Rockets fan, if you're following me, you obviously know that that's There's a lot of potential here. Ime Udoka was absolutely the right hire, and I'm enjoying the new front office changes. Shout out to Raphael Stone. We got to meet and chat the last game here in San Antonio, and he gave me his John Hancock before we got to move on that night. But speaking of San Antonio, Wemby is a freak, y'all. That guy is absolutely nuts. Got to see him in person finally. And it's a very good thing. So I'm not saying a freak in any sort of bad regard. Like, Victor Wembanyama is everything he was marketed out to be. Just a whole different level of person and a whole different level of athlete. This is the next gen, the next twist. Him and Chet Holmgren, the big shooting bigs of the NBA, I think, are the transition we're going back to, and just size. I think Jokic just has turned that trend around. Chris Connor, for you, is Wemby going to be that start, like the Cooper Flag coming up of the world, all the big men that shoot? Is that the next big phase of the NBA?
It looks that way. I mean, they're going to need to surround him with some more talent. And I'll say this again, and I know people are going to look at me as if I'm crazy, but it's time also to fire Coach Popovich. I think it's just, you need to get a younger coach in there. You need to get somebody who I think at least is going to be around and understands, sort of the younger players, and not a guy who, for all intents and purposes, he seems like, I'm just getting a retirement check. I'm going to, fist bump players, bro hugs, don't boo the players. Like, just fire him. I'm telling you right now, fire Popovich. You can fire Bill Belichick. You can fire Greg Popovich.
It may be funny to you, motherfucker, but it's not funny to me, okay?
Keep Pop's name out of your damn mouth, Chris Connor.
Popovich, a guy who has not made the playoffs in the last 6 seasons. Like, really Popovich here. Why? I mean, I get it. He's the cuddly, angry grandfather that you probably want to love, Ernest, but no. Put old Yeller down. It's time. It is time.
Kenny Carter, you believe Pop's out?
No, I don't think that Popovich is the problem. What's the talent that Pop has had over the last number of years, and what coach is coming in that's providing more value to what is probably a generational talent than Popovich right now? But yeah, the roster sucks around him. We all know it. That's why they're 11-44. But it's not a Popovich problem. It's a talent problem. If anything, you should be firing the GM because they haven't put the talent around him to succeed in his first year. And yeah, it's been 4 years since he made the playoffs. But again, who's been the best player that they've had over the last 4 years? The last year of DeMar DeRozan when he was there, because they haven't had a lot of talent there. I guess you could go DeJounte Murray the 1 year that he had there. Before then, the front office traded him away. So they didn't even hold on to the one talented player that they did have over that stretch. They're trying to play Jeremy Sochan at point guard when he's not a point guard. He's a wing. And it's disastrous to watch. And it's not Popovich's fault. Who else do you start at point guard? Who do you start at point guard? Who do you start at point guard?
He's the president of the team. I mean, he's a general manager who basically answers to him. Fire Popovich. I'm going to say hashtag
who do you start at point guard, Chris? Chris, who do you start at point?
That's his problem. I mean, you keep saying, he's just a coach. No, he's the president of a coach, so he picks the players and coaches them. I mean, at what point do you go, okay, he's part of the problem?
There's not talent there. Like you're not going to win with any head coach if you don't have talent. So,
okay, but he is the GM.
Until they're willing to spend money to go out and add talent around Wemby and not just banking on him being the savior of the franchise, then again, you're not going to bring in a coach that's going to help this kid, because that's what he still is. He's a kid that's figuring it out, and he's a defensive player of the year candidate in his rookie season. That's how good he is. But they don't have a point guard. Like, it's bad to watch, and it's not going to change if you fire Popovich. They're still going to win 11 games with the team that they have.
It will change, because you know what? He will not be making the decisions of what players to bring in, what players not to bring in.
But how are you winning? Talent wins out in the NBA. It's not just coaching; it's talent. They don't have talent.
We keep forgetting this. He's the president.
We're not forgetting it. We're not forgetting it. We're hearing what you're saying. We're just disagreeing with you.
He's the guy who picks the players, though. At what point do we go, well, it's also his fault for not finding a point guard, for not being able to sign people? Like, why aren't players going to sign with San Antonio if everybody loves Popovich? I mean, at some point,
So that was my next point,
Well,
right?
you know,
I do
they
believe-
wait.
Not the GM. You want to get mad at Brian Wright? Get mad at Brian Wright. Like,
But it's
Do
not
we
Brian
believe-
Wright. I mean, Brian Wright basically works for Popovich. Everybody knows it. It's Popovich is the president. He has installed Brian Wright as the GM. It's basically Patriots, Bill Belichick. Yes, there was a GM. And you know what? It was still Bill making the picks, organizing who played where, who was basically drafted, who was signed. It's the same thing. Popovich. He is the president. He runs the whole thing.
I believe that there's a player problem of going to San Antonio and playing with Wemby and Pop. I don't know if it's an attractive place enough to win now for star players. I think you've got to go and grab those guys that are up and coming and hope they pan out to be stars and then get them in the draft. And I think positioning yourself at the bottom of the league now is good to get when Wemby starts really going into his prime, the talent that you need to grow around him. But San Antonio's going to have to wait just like Houston, just like Oklahoma City. You've got to play the rebuild. And if you're anybody in the media, you want them to win now. Like the Wemby attackers are going to start year 2 and year 3. And then you get that pressure in San Antonio is, can you keep Wemby? And I think that's the part where Pop plays the most, is that you have this Hall of Fame coach there. Brand new stadium now going to be built in San Antonio for the Spurs. And that is all to keep Wemby. So a lot to watch and a lot to go forward in San Antonio. We are wrapping up our first basketball segment of the year with Kenny's Lakers. LeBron and Bronny, they're destined to play together. Is it in LA or is it somewhere else? And do you think it happens? So Kenny, wrap us up on this. Does it happen and is it in LA?
I mean, Bronny's not even a draftable player right now. He's averaging like 5 points at USC. So if you're a team that's really just wanting a 1-year LeBron rental, because that's what you'd be getting if you were to draft Bronny James in this year's draft. And I know that college stats aren't everything. We see players all the time that average lower and then they get to the pros and they're really productive. But that's really low for a freshman. And I don't think that it's defendable if you're a GM drafting Bronny James, because if you don't get LeBron to come as well, because let's face it, LeBron's about as finicky as they come when it comes to moving himself. I don't think that LA is going to do it. I think that they'd be really foolish to. But if you're looking for, if you were to name one team that could probably use LeBron on a 1-year rental, you would look at a team like the Knicks and you'd look at a team like the Cavs, because they have Brunson and Mitchell are both really good, but maybe they just need that one extra piece to get them over the top. And LeBron's wouldn't give you a lot in the regular season. You're more so looking at in a playoff series, you would have a guy like LeBron that could potentially help put you over the top in a series. But I just don't think that it makes sense for a team to be drafting a guy averaging 5 points a game.
Like, don't you want to see for funsies Cleveland draft Bronny? Be like, okay, balls into your court, LeBron. Like, come on back. Like,
I mean, the NBA is already a circus, so sure.
Chris Connor, where's your team? Where does LeBron and Bronny end up?
I have no idea. I mean, can Bronny even play in the NBA? I mean, he's forget about the stats. He's not even starting for a bad USC team. So, okay, great. And plus, remember, he had, heart issues earlier this year. Who knows if that's going to be a long-term thing? I mean, I get it. Yeah, everybody wants to have LeBron, but would you give up a first round? Would you even give up a second-round pick for this kid? He's a combo guard who's not even able to start for USC, who's not even, I'd say, a top 100 prospect right now. I mean, as I say, I hate to say this also, it's time for LeBron to go. I'm sorry. The player is great. The person, the politics, the King LeBron stuff, it's getting tiresome. Just go away. Go something else. Go to movies. You can do all the bad movies you want, but it's time for him to go. It's time for the new generation players, the Jalen, the Jason Tatums, the Djokovic's, the Greek Freak. It's their time. No more LeBron. No more just King LeBron, and all of us just listen to his, pity party conferences. He is the greatest thing ever since sliced bread. We know it. It's time for him to go.
There are a couple of different destinations. So I completely disagree. I love the kingdom. I love the king story. So I want to live that while I can until LeBron's gone. People who didn't realize it was the end of the MJ era when he was in his prime. I mean, they got to get that old time MJ. I don't want to see that happen, LeBron. I want to see LeBron on top. But I would really love to see like LeBron get a 1-year rental in San Antonio, have some fun there with Pop, get a year with Pop just for fun. Like get a legend coach, legend player under his belt, get that on his resume. And maybe they do draft Bronny. They're trying to stay in the rebuild phase. So maybe it happens, right? They just fuck it. We're gonna spend a second rounder on this kid. But I think there's other outside teams like Dallas, I think would be a good spot also. I think putting LeBron there and them enticing him with Bronny. It's something I think Cuban would do to be cute in the league. And then maybe the Heat having that last hurrah with LeBron and bringing him back to the root where he won his first championship. That would be a good place.
I'll give you one, Ernest.
Okay.
They already have 1 million draft picks. Why not go to OKC? Because if you're OKC, you've already got Chet, you've got Shea, you're going to be in the playoffs this year. We assume as a young team that they're not going to go very far in the playoffs. They may win a series, but typically it takes a few years of playoff heartbreaks to get them there. Maybe they do waste a late second-round pick on Bronny to get LeBron as a 1-year rental. And then you make a real run of it. And you don't need LeBron to play the regular season because you've proven that you can win games. It's just Shea's going to average like 32 on 55% shooting, and Chet's going to be a defensive player of the year candidate. And Giddey, let's maybe not touch on his off-the-court stuff, but on the court, he's fairly productive. Lou Dort is pretty talented. The Williams guys are like, it's a talented roster. And so if you can afford to waste a second-round pick, a late one, why not? Like you get a 1-year rental out of LeBron, your ticket sales go up, everything goes up when you add the King, especially if he were to announce his farewell tour that he's not sure if he wants it because he's not he doesn't like attention, despite having a chosen one tattoo on his chest.
Yeah, he absolutely loves the attention.
I'm gonna give you my hot take. There's going to be a lot of teams are going to pass on LeBron and Bronny because you know what? This is what's going to happen. What happens if LeBron makes demands? Like, Bronny needs to play like at least 20 minutes per game. Bronny needs to start at least half the games. I mean, I get it. It's LeBron James. You try to make appeasement for stars, but he basically is the GM, coach, player of any place he goes. So at what point do teams go, nah, we'll pass. I'm sorry. I know you're great, LeBron, but if your kid can't play, we don't want to have a team mutiny because, like, oh, great. The kid's playing because daddy's telling us what to do.
I think that kind of goes back to what I was saying. Like a San Antonio team who wouldn't care about that would be a good place if he ends up really wanting that. I just don't see LeBron acting that way. If he wants to chase a ring and also play with his son, stay with the Lakers or go to OKC. I love the Knicks pick. I think that's a good spot. And if the Cavs and Thunder are almost identical, right? Young teams with winning records, favorable. It makes sense for both of those programs. So we will have to see. Now, guys, we are at the end of our show. And if you've been listening, we appreciate you. If you're a valued listener to the show, you're a participant in the show, you're going to definitely want to hear the upcoming specials. The ITL Bracket Challenge is near. March Madness is upon us. We are 1 month away, a little less than 1 month away from March Madness starting. And believe me, college basketball is crazy. There really is no definitive favorite, in my opinion. I believe it's kind of all the way around. Okay, you're right. The Houston Cougars are definitely at the top of my list too. Kenny, you had the right idea there. We are going to put it out there. $100 on the line. Join the ESPN Bracket Challenge for ITL. We will have that link posted on every show starting when the Bracket Challenge is open on ESPN. We want to have a ton of entries. We've had thousands of entries before. Beat one of us. Get some bragging rights. We are excited for that to start. But we also have a really fun segment starting right after our March Madness episode. It is our What If Basketball NBA edition. And we are putting together the promos for this, and we are putting together the combatants. Kenny and I will duke it out in the first season. This is the first time he's hearing about it. So check this out. We are going to go back through all the years dating back to 1994, starting with last season's playoff runs. and the NBA teams that ran it. We are going to take the winners of each round and add the best player who fits that team onto that roster and see if we get the same champions each season going backwards. So what that means is if the Rockets and Warriors played again in 17, then the Rockets may have Donovan Mitchell on their team alongside James Harden after they beat the Jazz in the first round. They may end up having other players that they got from all their other victories until they lost to the Warriors in the conference finals. So we're going to do that. We're going to have some fun with it. Get you guys on here and participating, selecting who you would think, and we'll have the simulation run with very own It's Rated Merc doing it on NBA 2K. So we're excited to be doing that series and hosting the debates on who you would take and why we'd take them and seeing what our GMs here on ITL end up selecting. So stay tuned for that What If Edition NBA or What If NBA Edition here on ITL. Guys, it was a pleasure speaking with y'all. I appreciate you guys talking hoops. I'm excited for this season. We're going to get into it next week as we get further into the games and start doing some pick'ems. Kenny Cotter, tell the people where they can find you.
You can follow me at HedgePod. I don't really have anything to promote outside of that. Ernest, Chris, appreciate you guys. Good show tonight, and thanks for having me back.
Of course, brother. Anytime at all. And Chris Connor, tell the people where they can find you.
You can find me on thelastcallpodcast.com. Tomorrow we drop an interview with Australian undefeated super welterweight Jordan LaRochia. They'll be fighting once again on March 1st. We got some more boxing and some more MMA guests coming up next couple of weeks as well. And you can also check me out on twitter.com, Last Call with Chris C. I'm on Instagram, Facebook. And Ernest, has been a blast talking football, and I probably might even stop by talking more basketball. I miss my football already, but at least we got the NFL draft coming up. So I still have hope. We can talk some draft once in a while.
Yeah, Chris, it was a great surprise to have you on the show for basketball, and I appreciate your input. And I know NFL offseason, and we transitioned to hoops, but of course, anytime you want to hop on, we'll be on here talking hoops, and we'll get Chris Remick back on the show, Davis Cordova back on the show. Very excited to have our other guests, and then, of course, The Source with their wonderful algorithm and what they believe is going to happen in the playoffs coming towards the latter half of the season. But guys, I am your host, Ernest Doc E. Silva. Very much appreciate our panel and our sports scientists. Appreciate all your ears. Good luck to your teams the second half of the NBA season, and we will be catching up with more bets and odds starting next week. Have a great night, y'all.